The day all metal failed did not arrive with thunder or a prophetic eclipse. It crept in like salt fog, quiet and corrosive. Blacksmiths woke to find sword blades flaked into dull powder at the merest flex. Harbor chains snapped under their own weight. Steam engines seized as brass gears crumbled to crystalline shards. Across the continent, people could only stare at handfuls of metallic dust, rubbing it between their palms as though warmth might coax the strength back into iron. It never returned. From that morning onward, steel was little tougher than stale bread, copper as friable as dried leaves. Folks named the calamity the brittle short, sharp, honest. Where kingdoms once counted their power in cannons and ordered iron fleets, they now measured survival in planks, pitch, and the length of a straight-grained mast. Woodworkers became sovereigns of the new age. But the brittle birthed shadows too. From the outer archipelagos sailed raiders whose hulls glimmered white under moonlight, their weapons cut from salvaged window panes and crystal chandeliers. People called them glass shard pirates. Their blades, though delicate to the eye, sliced flesh as readily as steel ever had. They struck quickly, knowing no fortress gate could rely on iron hinges, no soldier's helmet would resist even a bottle's jagged heel. Along the western coast lay the crescent harbor of Wreckhaven, so named for the breakers that chewed ships to driftwood each winter. In quieter times it had been a town of fishers and ferry skippers. After the brittle, it became a barricade of cedar palisades and lookout towers, fashioned from uprooted signal masts. At the heart of Wreckhaven's stinking wharves lived Oren Thane, shipwright, son of shipwrights, with cedar shavings forever tangled in his beard. He loved the sea the way a mason loves stone, keenly, critically aware of every fault line. When the pirates first raided the neighboring village of Tidepool, Oren repaired shattered doors and replaced burnt beams, but a nag gnawed at him. Patchwork could not keep pace with destruction. He would need a new kind of vessel, one that sailed upon land, striding where ketches could not tack. Oren's epiphany came while he watched a beetle traverse a piling. The insect wore a shell harder than any bronze breastplate, yet made entirely of chitin, that cousin of wood. Why not build a defender the same way a beetle grows layer on layer, fibers interlocked? Hull planks, rib frames, spars, knees, every trick of shipcraft could be twisted upright, given legs. He sketched feverishly, a torso shaped like a turned wine cask, legs of reversed bowsprit curvature, arms ending in articulated grapnel claws modeled after anchor flukes. He named the design Heartwood, believing that in the absence of metal, courage itself must be carved. The town council listened to Oren's proposal in the lanthol-lit loft of the sailmaker's barn. Councillor Blith, once a prosperous ironmonger before the brittle bankrupted him, scoffed aloud. A walking tree is no match for glass cutlasses. Midwife Tamra asked the sharper question, how will you power it? With what joints? Oak squeals if twisted? Oren unrolled a second parchment. Laminated birch gears soaked in boiled linseed to toughen them, maple axles wrapped in rawhide to provide spring, tendons of braided hemp rope drawn through pulleys carved of lignum vitae, the hardest wood he knew. A pair of young pulley boys could work pistons by pumping treadles, the way one might row a dory. It will be slower than thunder, he admitted, but thunder never rebuilt a town. This will buy us time. Arguments swirled like gulls over a gut pile. Fear of wasting lumber warred with fear of pirate blades. At last the harbor master said, if we do nothing, Wreckhaven ends as Tidepool did fire and screams. I'd rather risk being a fool in cedar than a corpse in ash. The vote carried. Oren was granted the abandoned drydock behind his workshop, 10 wagon loads of timber, and the help of any volunteer who would labor without pay. Dozens answered, carpenters whose saws no longer cut iron nails, coopers hungry for staves, even children eager to fetch dowels. Construction began under a swollen harvest moon. Oren's younger sister Marowans, a clockmaker, devised wooden ratchet keys as large as scythe blades. Her hands remembered the delicacy of brass cogs, and she carved each gear toothed with a knife so sharp the handles smelled of sap. Beside her, Leo the cooper steamed oak into circles that became shoulder sockets. Sailmaker Jarrett stitched hemp webbing across the mech's chest to distribute strain like rigging on a topmast. They sanded until splinters lay like snowdrifts around their ankles. Every dawn, Orrin inspected progress, tapping joints with a mallet, listening for the drum note that told of tight grain and true fits. Where stress would be greatest, he inlaid crossbands of greenheart, a dense tropical wood hauled from half a world away, back when metal hulls still crossed oceans. He coated every surface in pine tar mixed with powdered charcoal, a poor man's armor, hard enough to glance a glass dagger. For the heart, he selected a living sapling of ironbark, nurtured in a clay pot. Embedded upright within the mech's core, its roots threaded through hollows packed with soil, Orrin believed that as long as the sapling breathed, so too would his creation. Rumors flew faster than gulls on an updraft. In taverns, folk whispered that Orrin had turned druid, coaxing Ents to war. Others claimed the council planned to abandon wood roofs to feed the automaton. Orrin ignored gossip. His nights belonged to the smell of linseed smoke and the creak of block and tackle hoisting limbs into place. Weeks stretched into months until, on the first blizzard day of winter, Heartwood stood complete, 23 feet tall at the head cap, broad as a river barge, eyes fashioned from mirrored lantern glass, legs jointed backward like a heron's for marshy ground. 2 heavy arms ended in lattice-worked claws, able to scoop a longboat from the surf. At its back bloomed a fin-shaped shield of overlapping cedar scales, designed to deflect arrows of glass. Testing required caution. The volunteers assembled behind the breakwater, ropes hitched to Heartwood in case she toppled. Inside the hollow torso, Orrin and Mara crouched at pump handles, opposite each other. "Row steady," Orrin said, voice trembling from equal parts cold and hope. They shoved. Wooden pistons slid. The right leg swung forward with a ponderous groan, foot crunching through frozen sand. Children cheered atop the seawall. Another stride, then another. Heartwood's gait became a rhythm, timber bones flexing with whale's slow grace. After 50 paces, Orrin halted, chest hammering harder than the mech's footfalls. She was no cavalry steed, but she moved, and each step sent belief farther than arrows could fly. 6 days later, the lookouts rang the clamshell alarm. Sails pierced the horizon, white, jagged, glinting as if cut from mirror. The glass shard pirates returned, hulls of driftwood studded with broken bottles set like scales. Their flagship, the Shiver Queen, boasted a prow shaped from a cathedral window. Winter sun scattered rainbow knives across the sea. For all its beauty, every shard promised to sever. Townsfolk scrambled, wielding spears shod not with iron but with charred oak. They had guts, yet no wall stout enough to withstand a boarding party armed with hook blades. Orrin vaulted up Heartwood's bow ladder, Mara close behind. The mech crouched on the strand, knees locked. Volunteers manned crankshafts below, ready to feed hemp through winches that served as artificial muscles. Orrin thrust his head into the helm cupola where pulleys converged like marionette strings. From this vantage he could peer through the mirrored eye panes at the approaching doom. The pirates grounded their shallow draft ships on the outer bars, disembarking with shields of woven rope and jagged panes. They exuded a cruel confidence. They had razed 4 towns along the Cape already, facing only splintering pikes and courage. The sight of Heartwood rising, however, gave even the boldest pause. Sand cascaded as the mech straightened to full height. Orrin yanked hard on the left arm lever. Heartwood answered, sweeping a huge claw in warning across the harbor mouth, sending a gust that whipped banners from their poles. Pirate archers loosed volleys, needle-thin slivers fused from bottlenecks. Most tinked harmlessly off cedar scales. A few lodged like glittering thorns. Orrin advanced, knees plunging knee-deep through surf. Behind him, wardens and fisherfolk formed lines, spears bristling. He must hold the tide line. The first melee tested every peg joint. A knot of marauders rushed with pole hooks aimed at Heartwood's ankles, intent on toppling the giant. Orrin stomped. 2 men vanished under the claw foot, their cries muffled by cracking glass armor. Mara spun the torso gear, pivoting Heartwood's upper body so the right arm could snatch a third pirate. The mech's grapple closed, trapping the man like a crab in a lobster pot. Orrin wrenched the lever sideways, and the prisoner sailed through air, landing in a drift of snow some yards away, dazed but breathing. If they could win without massacre, Better to kill was to feed tomorrow's grudges. Yet the Shiver Queen's captain was no fool. She signaled with a shard-bright semaphore, and her crew fetched a war engine of their own, a catapult built of bleached bone and glass struts. The contraption flung a missile the size of a wine cask, an orb of fused shards bound by tarred rope. It burst against Hartwood's chest in a starburst of razor petals. Mirror shattered, cedar scales split. Orrin felt each fracture like a punch to his ribs. The sapling heart shuddered. Droplets of resin wept down the trunk. Retreating was impossible. The town lay at his back, so Orrin chose aggression. He ordered full stride, pushing the treadle pumps until his thighs burned. Hartwood lunged, sloshing through knee-high waves, covering the 100 yards to the Shiver Queen before the catapult could be rewound. Pirates scattered, some diving overboard onto sandbars. Orrin raised the left claw and drove it straight through the flagship's hull. Planks splintered inward, seawater spewed up like geysers. With the right arm he heaved, tearing free a sheet of hull armored in mosaic glass. It glittered in the winter light, a false rainbow made martyr. Orrin hurled the wreckage toward the catapult, smashing bone spars to splinters. Victory seemed close enough to smell, the briny odor of broken decks, but danger still brewed. Piratical saboteurs had raced beneath Hartwood's legs, wedging kegs of whale oil at the knee joint. They struck flints, flames whooshed up, oily orange tongues licking tarred wood. Inside the torso, the temperature spiked, acrid smoke coiling through the helm slit. Mara coughed, shouting, "We'll torch from within!" Orrin's gaze found the harbor mouth where cold seawater lapped. An idea sparked. "Cut the shield," he barked, and Mara yanked a release pin. The cedar scale fin detached, dropping behind Hartwood like a weighted rudder, unburdened. The mech bent every tendon, screaming as Orrin forced a kneel. Flames gusted along thighs. One more lever and Hartwood pitched forward, belly flopping into the surf. Steam exploded as icy water smothered oil. Waves surged over breastplate and helm, quenching husk and pirate alike. Orrin's ears rang. The world became hiss and foam. When the water receded, Hartwood sprawled half-submerged, charred black along the legs but intact. The pirates' morale, however, had snapped. Their flagship sank, prow vanishing under swirling rainbow slicks. Survivors fled for dinghies, only to find wreck haven archers' bowstrings waxed against moisture commanding the tide flats. One by one, the marauders laid down their glass. Silence clung to the shore until the first cheer burst from a child perched in a ruined watchtower. It spread, ragged and roaring. Men beat spear shafts against shields of barrel staves. Women wept into mittens. Orrin climbed from Hartwood's hatches with Mara at his side, both black-sooted. The townsfolk hoisted them upon shoulders, chanting not their names, but the mech's. "Hartwood, Hartwood." Orrin shook his head, laughing through tears. "Cheer the volunteers," he tried to say, but the words melted into the din. Repairs consumed the following week. Volunteers patched scorched planks with fresh cedar, replaced broken mirror eyes with shells of polished abalone, and lacquered every wound in a glaze drawn from pine resin and crushed oyster. They planted 2 more saplings within the torso so the first would not stand lonely. Children hung garlands of winter berries around the mech's neck, a necklace to remind it, should it care, of the life it protected. Prisoners of the Shiver Queen were offered leniency in exchange for labor. Many accepted, sawing boards beside the very people they had intended to rob. Some confessed awe, we thought would meant weakness, one admitted while planing a beam. Orrin handed him a wedge. "Wood remembers the storm," he said. "Metal just forgets until it breaks." Spring came early, teasing buds from frost-scabbed orchards. Travelers arrived, drawn by rumor of the wooden guardian. They brought gifts, mulberry bark paper etched with lifting calculations, crates of exotic saps saturated with natural rubber, seeds of bamboo said to grow 3 feet a day. From distant marshes arrived an engineer who spoke of harnessing wind through great wing fans atop Hartwood's shoulders, converting gusts into motive power so rowers could rest. Innovation blossomed like alder catkins, each idea grafting to the next. Yet Orrin never let wonder drown prudence. He recognized that timber ages, joints loosen, rot prowls unseen beneath paint. Heartwood might save Wreckhaven, but the wider coast remained vulnerable. So he opened the dry dock to any who would learn, the apprentice coopers and discredited ironmongers alike. Instead of protecting one town, they would seed defenses up and down the shore. Smaller mechs for hamlets, towering giants for port cities, ambulatory fire wagons to haul water to blaze sites, even wooden harvest walkers for inland farms where ox yokes had snapped under the brittle. On a clear morning, Orrin guided the first class of journeymen around Heartwood, explaining scar knots, tension rings, the secret of aligning grain so that stress traveled like ripples rather than splits. They listened, jotting notes with charcoal stubs on planks. He ended beneath the mech's keelbone, where the saplings rooted in packed loam. Iron rusts, glass may shatter perfect, he told them, voice low so the younger children tilted closer. But wood lives. If you tend it, it grows stronger, even after you carve it. Remember that? And nothing the brittle stole cannot be replaced. That night, Orrin sat alone on the seawall, watching moonlight silver the repaired hulls bobbing in harbor. Heartwood stood sentinel beyond, outlined against starlight, a cathedral made of forest, a promise hefted upon broad shoulders. The horizon lay quiet for now, yet Orrin's mind wandered beyond its rim. There would be new perils, ceramic armies, stone cannon, obsidian berserkers. Wood alone might not forever prevail. Still, he smiled. History had snapped once, like iron under invisible frost. But people were not metal. They bent, they splintered, yet they found ways to hold fast, weaving themselves together like fibers in a mast. Someday, perhaps, children would recite tales of the brittle only when kindling hearth fires, as distant a memory as iron warships were now. And somewhere beyond that horizon, Orrin hoped, forests would whisper of the day they learned to walk and defend the fragile hearts of humankind.